Hey guys, I'm Dani. Welcome here to Summer Skye Gardens. If you're new to the channel, I own a flower farm in Splendora, Texas, which is right northeast of Houston. We're Zone 9B, and I'm at the farm today, and the first thing that I need to prepare is a florist order. So I thought that this would be a good topic for today's video to talk about selling to florists, how to do it, how to get those relationships established. When we opened our farm last year, I knew that selling wholesale to florists during the week was going to be a big way that I wanted to make sales and move product. And I started doing it in the fall. And I've developed some really good relationships with a few local florists, one of which buys every week for me. And that's who I'm going to be pulling today. So I'm going to show you kind of what I'm pulling, how I'm preparing everything for her, and then take a step back and talk about how do you even, go about setting up selling to florists? What does it look like? Is this even, a good venture for you to do? And just kind of give you some tips that I have learned in my own experience, as well as I've watched a ton of videos and interviews with florists and growers, and I've really learned some great information that I want to share with you guys if this is something that you're interested in doing. As always, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Be sure to share with your friends. I'm super close to getting this channel monetized, which would be a great way to produce some passive income for the farm. So do all the things for the algorithm, and let me take you guys inside my cooler and we will pull some flowers. Okay, so we are inside the cooler and I have a ton of flowers in here to pull from. And if you're interested in learning how we built this cooler, I will link that video below. It's a walk-in cooler that we built inside the shed, and we use a CoolBot. I'll take some video of everything that I have out down here. But for today's florist, I'm pulling a bunch of bells of Ireland, a bunch of anemones, one bunch of lilies, and one bunch of short pink statice. So let me do that and kind of show you all the flowers, and then we'll go inside while I let them kind of acclimate to room temperature and hydrate, and I'll talk you through the rest of the processes. All right, here we are with all the flowers. Sorry, it's kind of loud, the AC just turned on. So these are all my lilies that are popping up this week. This variety is called Forever Summer. It's a really pretty color for spring and summer. I've got some bells of Ireland here. These are shorties, so I'm going to cut some tall ones for my florist today. Have some statice that I picked last week. These are all my ranunculus that I'm saving for my bouquet subscriptions tomorrow. Have some cress. Have a bunch of snapdragons and mignonette. A lot more statice over here. And I kind of separate my statice with like shorties and talls. And then this is kind of a hodgepodge of some anemones, some stock, and a couple of stems of yarrow. And a lot of this stuff I'll be using for my bouquet subscriptions tomorrow. So I only have one florist order this week because you want to kind of balance everything out so that you have enough flowers for everybody. So it's cold in here. Let's go inside. All right, came inside the kitchen inside our farmhouse. And one note, if you ever watch any videos of me out at our farm, we do not live here. This is a separate property that we bought to run this business. So yes, it does kind of stink having to go back and forth. It's really not that far away, but it is nice that any of the space within the house I can use as needed for, flower stuff. So I always harvest and pull flowers for the florists in the morning that I'm going to deliver. I usually do deliveries in the afternoon because I don't live at the farm. I need to have the time to come out here and get everything together to deliver later in the day. So I may have stuff that's already been in the cooler, or I may have to go cut some fresh stuff. So I'll pull them out of the cooler or whatever, bring them into the just regular room temperature, air conditioning inside the house, and I'll let them sit here for at least a couple of hours before I transport them. I don't keep things bunched in the cooler right now just because, I don't know, for a lot of different reasons, but I'll pull what I need, and if I'm going to rubber band it, I'll rubber band it. So like these little anemones, these are some shorties that I'm selling. So I'm going to rubber band these, and then this is some shorter pink status that I'm also going to rubber band. Now, I don't rubber band everything. Some stuff you don't want to squish it together because it'll actually hurt the flowers, but some things I do. So that's the status and the anemones. And then this is my bucket of the lilies and the bells of Ireland. The bells I actually went out and just cut today, so they really need to sit in here and hydrate. The other ones were all in the cooler. I'm not going to bunch the bells because they're so like fluffy that I think rubber banding them together squishes them too much. And I'm definitely not rubber banding the lilies because they are very delicate when they have any kind of open flowers. Most of them are closed, but some of them have a little bit of buds starting to open. So I'm just going to kind of lay them gently within the basket for transport. But yeah, I will let these sit. It is 10:30. So these will sit in here until it's time for me to leave to go deliver, which should be about 1:30 to 2 o'clock. That's when I'll leave to go to drop these off. But let's go sit down, and I'm going to kind of talk you through how I felt like I knew I wanted to sell to florists, how I established the relationships that I have, and kind of my process for communicating with them and getting orders in. Okay, that's better. Be able to sit down for a minute. So I think the first thing about selling to florists is, how do you know if it's right for you? So, I like selling to florists because it's a way to move product during the week when you may not have other sales going on. So if you like to do flower stands or U-picks on the weekend, selling to florists during the week is a way to be able to use flowers that may not make it to the weekend. You're able to actually sell those, to the florists. So I think, first of all, is that something that you want to manage during the week? Because most florists are going to want their flowers anywhere from, Monday to Friday. I mean, it just depends on what they're using them for. But is that something that you want to mess with or not? So I think that's the first question you want to ask yourself. The other thing is, do you want to grow what the florists are going to want? So I think the first thing you need to look at if you decide you do want to sell to florists is, who's around me? Who can I set up relationships with? What do they usually do with their flowers? Are they more on the retail side where they're really pushing bouquets during the week? Somebody can come into their store and just grab a bouquet for any reason. Stop. Sorry, if you see the camera jiggle at all, the cat, they are driving me nuts. The cats are trying to rub up against the stand here and scratch themselves. And I'm like, go away, go outside and go run around. Okay, anyway, so when you start looking at the florists around you, look at what they're using the flowers for. If it's more of a retail florist, they're going to be doing a lot of things during the week. They may just be pushing, all kinds of different arrangements. They may take custom orders for like a funeral or a birthday party. They may do event work, they may not. Usually event work is going to be more on the weekend, and it may kind of garner different types of flowers. So I'll give you some examples of the florists that I've been working with. So one of them does retail and event work. Pretty much anything you can use flowers for, she does it. It's a pretty big shop on the north side of town, and she uses all different types of flowers. So I know with her, whatever I'm growing, I can offer her, and she tends to buy like a little bit of a lot of different things. So I'm not really having to garner what I'm growing around her because she does so many different things. Now, another florist I've worked with really only does event work. She does weddings, corporate events, maybe like, large baby showers, stuff like that. And she tends to want kind of similar stuff over and over again. So definitely, greenery, maybe like lighter pastel colors, showy showstopper center flowers, stuff like that. And she's more wanting her flowers, for the weekend. And then I have another florist that I work with that does very custom specialty orders, kind of just for the week or the weekend. They're all in a box, and she uses floral foam and nothing is in water. So I know with her, she's only going to buy stuff that is going to last out of water. So for instance, like for springtime, my anemones do not do good out of water. So she has no interest in those, but definitely has interest in like ranunculus, lisianthus, maybe some tulips, stuff like that. Really isn't buying a lot of greenery. So, it just kind of depends. But you can see where like each florist is different. And this may be something you're able to tell ahead of time. Look at their website, follow them on social media, start interacting with them, like their post, comment on it, shoot them a message if you want, like, oh, I love your work. Share about them, but really just kind of follow on what they're doing and figure out if it's a right fit for you. Like, do I want to grow the type of flowers that they're going to be using? Does it feel like that will kind of match well on our aesthetic? Now, once you figure out the florist that you want to get in contact with, I definitely suggest making an appointment, reaching out to them and making an appointment for you to come in and talk to them in person. You'll hear some growers tell you that you can just cold call, like take a bucket of flowers and just go into the shop and try to get their attention, but they're busy, just like we're busy. Like they have a schedule. I mean, you might walk into a florist shop and she's in the back, like right in the middle of working on a bridal bouquet. She's not going to be able to stop and come talk to you. So if you don't want to waste your time doing that, message them, call them ahead of time and say, hey, I'm a local grower. I really would love to start working with you. Is there a good time I can come in and introduce myself and bring you some product and talk about what all I can offer you? And when I've done that, like everyone has said yes. I've never been turned down on setting up a meeting. And I might call the shop. I might do it through social media. I might email them. It just kind of depends on where you see them being the most active. So now you're at the step, okay, you've got a meeting coming up with this florist. What are you going to do and bring for the meeting? So I'm a big proponent of bringing a little bit of product, flowers that you can leave with them for them to kind of play with and get to know your product. I would choose stuff that's, excellent quality. If you have anything that's kind of different, like a different plant, maybe you don't think they've seen, that's uncommon, a different variety. In the fall, I was growing a lot of mahogany splendor hibiscus, which is a really pretty like maroon foliage. It looks awesome for fall. I brought it to all the florists I met with and they all loved it. They had never seen it. I guess they can't get it at the wholesalers, and thought it was so cool. And it was a way for them to understand like, oh, look, here's a local grower that can offer me stuff that I can't get at my wholesaler. Okay, let me see what else she's got. So just, a little bit of product, 5 or 10 stems of something, that you can leave with them and let them enjoy and play with. So I definitely recommend bringing that. Some people will tell you don't have to, but I think it's proof of, hey, I know what I'm doing and I really want to work with you. Here's my stuff. Why don't you take it and you'll understand that I'm going to offer you an excellent product. The next thing that you definitely want to bring is, your business contact information. So if you have a business card, a postcard, something with just like, your email, your number, where they can find you, and, look at your profile, look at your flowers and your work, definitely bring that. I think a business card is the easiest way to do that. And then I would also make a list of either like the flowers that you plan on growing, or even what's available like seasonally or month by month. So when I started meeting with florists last year, I just made a very simple Word document where I put in the months, and then I put what's typically in bloom each month. Now, some of these I've been growing for years, so I've really got a handle on them. Some of them are kind of newer. So I would tell them, and the florists are going to understand like, hey, this is all weather related. So some stuff might be, moved around, but in general, like this is what's going to be in season, because part of them working with you and not the wholesaler is they're buying seasonal flowers, right? You're not going to have Lysianthus growing in December. Your Lysianthus are going to be, anywhere from like May to July. So they need to understand, like, if they have a January wedding, they cannot come buy Lysianthus from you, but they will get excellent fresh Lysianthus all summer. So yeah, I just did, month by month, and I just listed the flowers. And when I brought that in, I kind of like showed it to them and mentioned a few things like, oh, this is something that grows really well here. This is something that I'll have a lot of. And if they had questions about any of the types of flowers, I could kind of explain it fairly quickly. But all the florists loved that. I mean, loved it. They loved being able to see what all I can offer and when things are in season. So I highly recommend that. And if you're newer and you don't have a lot of experience on when stuff will be in bloom, just kind of guesstimate. And you can, instead of doing month by month, just do seasonally, like, hey, this is what I'm growing for spring. This is what I'm growing for summer. This is for fall, or, this is for winter. Now, depending on how long you're talking to the florist, you may share a little bit about yourself and your farm, and you really want to sell them on buying seasonally, locally grown flowers, because everything is going to be fresh. You're offering them a product that is top quality. Every stem will be usable. If you ever see flowers that come shipped from a wholesaler, the florists always know like maybe 30 to 40% of that product is going to be damaged, or they're not going to be able to use it. And they kind of work that into their buying. But if you're bringing them, I mean, they are like freshly cut within, a couple of days, maybe within the past week, but they've been stored with care. You're hand delivering them. They're not being shipped and messed with a ton. So everything you bring them, they're going to be able to use. So I think that's a big selling point, as well as just it's fresh. Things are going to smell nice. And, they may be able to get stuff from you that they can't get from the wholesaler. So like zinnias are huge where I live, because we have long, hot summers and zinnias grow really well here. Those do not ship. So if florists want to use zinnias, they're having to buy them locally. And I know where I am, there's not a ton of growers that are selling to florists. And so when I had zinnias in season, they just like ate them up. So knowing, what are some flowers you could grow that do not ship at all or do not ship well, I think is also a great selling point. So you can bring them in and say, hey, look at these beautiful zinnias that I'm growing that you can't find anywhere and that you want to use. This is the reason for you to work with me. Now, at the end of the visit, make sure you set up like some kind of follow-up. So, you leave your info, you leave the flowers and say, hey, can I reach out to you within a few days, call you, message you, whatever they like, and kind of follow up and see how you like the product and how we want to start working together. And if they say they're ready to start working together, cool. If they say, oh, we got to look at this or think about this, just make sure that there's some kind of established follow-up. So one of the florists I started working with, she was like, hey, let's do it. So I said, okay, cool. next week, I'll just start sending you my availability. And I checked with her, how do you want to be communicated with? Do you want me to call you, text you, email you? Vice versa. So set up some kind of established communication routine. When do you want me to get in touch with you about what I'm offering, and when do you want delivery? So for instance, the florist that I work with every week right now, she wants me to get in contact with her on Monday because that's when she places any additional wholesale orders for the week. And if she can get stuff from me first, she will. So I contact her and I say, hey, this is what I have for the week. And then she lets me know what she wants. And I just text her because she said that's the easiest way to get in touch with her. During the day, she's real busy, but she always has her phone on her. And then she likes delivery on Wednesdays because that way she can try to use it during the week or save it if she wants in her cooler for events on the weekend. So that's kind of our established routine every week. There was one week where I didn't have a lot to offer because what little flowers I had early in the season were being used for my CSA. And I just texted her on Monday and said, hey, I'm not going to be able to sell flowers this week, but I'll get back in touch with you next week. And she was like, no problem, that's fine. Now I have some other florists that don't buy every week. I still message them and I said, hey, this is what I have. This is what's in bloom. Let me know if you'd like anything. And they may text me back and say, oh, hey, I can't use anything this week, but, I'd love to in the future. So, communication is huge. Just setting up that established routine. You don't want to be haphazardly messaging all throughout the week. You don't want to be, doing haphazard deliveries. Like, set yourself up for success by having an established routine. Now, how to send out your availability. This can be done a ton of different ways. So I know for me, when I first started, I was just texting like a list of what I had. I started selling in the fall and I pretty much just had a handful of flowers and I said, hey, here's a list. These are the prices. What do you want? And she would just message me back. For the spring, since I'm growing so much stuff, so many different varieties and types of flowers, what I do is when something starts blooming, I take a picture of it and then I go onto Canva. I have a Canva Pro account, which I highly recommend. And I just make a little graphic. I'll put it right here so you can see it. It's just got a picture of the flower and it's got a price underneath, whether it's per bunch or per stem. And I found that they've really liked that because there may be some things that they're not used to. They don't quite know what it would look like in person. And florists are very visual. If they see something like, oh my God, that's so pretty, I need that, that might incentivize them to buy something that they weren't originally planning on. So depending on what I have, I just put the pictures in here. And this is a template that I save week by week. So it really only takes a few minutes of, I compile the pictures and maybe it's stuff that I'm selling week after week. So I don't have to go take, a new picture. But if it's something new, I take a picture, I upload it on my computer and I just pop it in the template. Then I download that and I just text it. And I say, hey, this is what I have this week. Boom. So she can look at everything and then she'll message me back, hey, I want bunches of this, 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 and this. Okay, great. So I think just figuring out what's best for you. Do you just want to list stuff out? Do you want to have a list on your website? Do you want to manage a shop on your website where they can go online and order? Do you want to send pictures or not? Some people use spreadsheets. I mean, there's a ton of different ways to do it. So I think just thinking about what you like to work with and what's gonna be the most efficient way for you to share with your florist what you have. I think it's just really dependent on you. Now, as far as pricing goes, these are going to be wholesale prices. So it's a cheaper price than what people pay retail. And that's because when you're selling to the florist, they're not the end user. They are going to then sell to the customer. So they want to buy it at a discount from you, and then they are upcharging it usually about 3 times to then sell to retail. This is also a non-taxed item for you because they are not the end user. The retail customer is paying sales tax to the florist. So the florist and you don't have to worry about taxes. Yay. But just know, and this may depend state by state, but I know in Texas, you need to get their resale certificate. And that's to show when you go to do your taxes at the end of the year, like, hey, this is all product that I sold wholesale, so I don't need to pay taxes on this. But yeah, as far as pricing goes, this is going to really vary about where you are in the country, what you're growing, is it in season or not? And there's just a ton of ways in which pricing can vary, but you want to kind of look at what are things selling for wholesale in your area, maybe the type of florist that you're using. And if you don't know, like, just ask them and say, hey, this is, the price I was thinking of. Is that an okay price for you? And they'll tell you if it is or if it isn't. And I will say one thing that I started doing that I learned from Ellen Frost. If you're not following her YouTube channel, go follow it. She's a longtime florist, and she's been talking a lot about grading and altering your price based on the grade of flowers. And I listened to an interview she did with Lisa Mason Ziegler, and they were talking about this process, and it made so much sense. So when you think about a flower, and I'll just use my Bells of Ireland that I'm selling today. So you have like your top tier perfect flower. So it's a certain size, a certain length. There's nothing wrong with it. And that's going to command your highest price. Well, like my bells, I have some that are shorter. And depending on the florist, they may be able to use those. I mean, if they're doing a small arrangement, they don't need a 1.5 foot, 2 foot stem. They might be able to use a 1-foot-long stem. And so a way for me to be able to sell that and for them to get a deal is to say, hey, I have these bells, they're short, and I'm going to offer them at a slightly cheaper price. And this has really worked out really well for me. So, I put that on my graphic. I say, oh, here's my regular yellow status, and here's my short yellow status. It's going to look the same, it's just shorter. And I said, this is the price, and then this is the price. So they have the option, depending on what they might need, to get a deal on a product that they can still use. And it's a way for you to be able to sell flowers that you may have thought were not sellable. So I think it's a really important point for you to remember with your growing. If you have stuff that's beautiful and usable, but maybe not like perfect for the florist, you can tell them like, hey, this is what it is. I'd like to sell it for this price and be able to get you a deal. Is this something that you're interested in? Another example is like I had some short tulips. I was still able to sell those. I just sold them at a little bit cheaper price. Or my ranunculus right now, because it's really warming up here in South Texas, the stems are getting shorter, the buds are a little smaller. So I said, hey, it's not like the top tier ranunculus that you're used to buying, but they are usable, they're still beautiful, and they're a lot cheaper. Is this something that you're interested in? So, figure out a grading system if you have variability within your flowers, and this can be a really great way for both of you guys to win. They get stuff at a discount, and you're still being able to sell stems that may have once been unsellable. And then when it comes time for delivery, based on where you're going, how far away they are, I would also consider, an agreed upon delivery fee to kind of cover your gas, the wear and tear on your car, any kind of tolls or transportation stuff. And you agree upon a certain day, a certain time, you bring the product to them, try to get them to put it in their own buckets so you can take your buckets home. And it's usually a pretty quick transaction. I mean, this florist today that I go to, I kind of walk in like, oh, hey, how's it going? Here's what I have, yada, yada, yada. Okay, cool. I'll talk to you. See you next week. Okay, so I think that's it. This is a long enough video talking about selling to florists. If you have any questions, please leave them below. And, I think by the end of the year, I'll maybe do an update on this is, how everything has gone with my florist sales. This is how much money I made. So stay tuned to that. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.